quantifying how much their carbon emissions is based on the emission factors of the certain materials that they use. So that's how we kind of calculate.
How does that make you feel when they had come to you for consultancy and seeing these changes implemented? Hi, I'm Jamie and welcome to Green Career Chats, a youth-led initiative by the Global Shapers Community Singapore Hub. At Green Career Chats, we aim to inspire and empower young people by sharing stories of professionals at the forefront of sustainability across industries. Today, we're delighted to have John Zapanta joining us. And John is a senior consultant at Mott MacDonald, one of the world's leading engineering consultancies, and he brings a wealth of experience in green building environment, offering invaluable insights to young change makers to let them understand how they can contribute to driving a sustainable future. And thank you for joining us. Let's get started. So, John, how did you get into sustainability consulting? What inspired you to focus on the built environment?
My first step into sustainability was actually through a year-long internship with the current firm that I'm in now. And from there, it kind of just sparked interest. So there is no cliche story of me since young. I've been wanting to be a sustainability consultant. If I were to ask myself 10 years ago what I wanted to be, I just wanted to be an engineer. So that was the thing that kind of popped into the head. So I kind of navigated through from education, and that's how I got here. Yeah.
I mean, it was a happy accident. Happy accidents are the best.
Yeah, a happy accident.
Yeah, and how would you describe what you do in one sentence?
I would say in one sentence, the kind of work or what I do is creating a positive impact. A positive impact. So in terms of the kind of things I do, some days I'm taking calls early in the morning with clients from the States, looking into green assessment for fit-out projects located in Tokyo, Shibuya. Some days I'm doing energy modeling for a hospitality mega project located in Abu Dhabi. And some days I'm doing crunching Excel spreadsheets, looking into portfolio assets for clients who look into decarbonizing their portfolio overall. So in terms of the kind of works I do, it's very diverse, very exciting, and it's never a same day for me.
So every day is different.
Yeah.
Every day you get to do different things and see different things. I imagine you get a lot of international exposure as well.
Yeah, international exposures, local exposures, looking into how some countries, how they set their targets, and how in a local context, how we do set our targets. And I would say overall, everyone's doing their part, and I would say overall, it's a very ambitious goal. But we are working towards that common goal, so I think everyone's on the same page already.
Speaking, you did say that everyone's playing their parts, and the different roles you can play in this industry and the built environment and sustainability. I wanted to ask, what's the difference between a consultant, engineer, and contractor?
So in terms of the consultant engineer, basically in the built environment, there are different stages to how we see the built environment. So mainly the consultants would be through the design phase of the building life, all until the time they kind of build the building itself. And maybe post-building, we will have the facilities manager managing it, and then sometimes they will engage the consultants to kind of observe and see how they can further improve their operations. So in terms of a consultant, it's kind of like the whole life cycle, but our involvement will be quite flexible. But in terms of a contractor, I would say from what I understand is they are involved hands-on with the constructing the actual building. Yeah.
I see.
So it's kind of us working all together with that common goal.
I see. So I imagine your role is very problem-solving heavy. So if you had to divide the problems that you solve in the context of sustainability in the built environment into perhaps 3 categories, what would they be?
So in terms of decarbonization, there's mainly two stream of thoughts over here. So firstly is the embodied carbon. Basically it's how you source your materials, and the other is your operational carbon. So how the building is being operated and what are your annual energy consumptions on a yearly basis. So in terms of for the embodied side of things, these are mainly specifically to the built environment. We have the civil engineers who design the piling load for the building, and for us sustainability consultants is using what they design and then kind of quantifying how much their carbon emissions is based on the emission factors of the certain materials that they use. So that's how we kind of calculate the embodied carbon side of things. As for the operational carbon, it's mainly your annual energy usage. And from there, I would say majority of this energy usage in context of Singapore, because we are located in the equator, so there is very so much air conditioning, and in terms of the climate, it's tropical. It's always sunny throughout the years with the seasonal monsoon seasons like now. We experience very cool weather. So in terms of the energy, I would say around 40% of it is consumed by your air conditioning equipments. And so that is where we want to understand with the facilities manager how it's being operated and how we can optimize either through operations, or if the equipment in the building is very old, then we would suggest to kind of overhaul everything and introduce a new and advanced chiller. But it's not always a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. Sometimes it's mainly because of the operations and how they do it. So that's how we kind of work together. That's the main two streamlines of decarbonization.
I see. I imagine it must be quite exciting as well, because this is sustainability and meeting net zero goals and decarbonization. These are all fairly new things, fairly new in the world of engineering as well. So I imagine solutions are not prescribed, and they're very much inventive, creative. You have to think, mix and match, modular. Would you say that's the case?
In terms of the what we call the asset enhancement initiatives, the AEIs, it's like what you mentioned. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and I wouldn't say that it's very prescriptive as well. So there are ongoing studies with institutions around the world to come up with innovative technologies and things. So in terms of building owners adopting these new technologies, of course, they are still very traditional. There are some technologies that they have adopted but have kind of backfired in a way. So take for example, for air conditioning spaces, there is a thing called the chilled beam to actually kind of cool the room for radiative cooling. But it is also proven to consume lesser energy. But the thing about this radiative cooling is there is a condensation issue. Take, for example, that radiative cooling, the chilled beams, there is condensation issue. So there is always droplets of water because there is a very big temperature difference between the outdoor and the indoor. So there are innovative technologies, and they are improving all these technologies so that we can stay in a room and be comfortable. At the same time, at the back end, it's consuming less energy in terms of how it's being pulled from a traditional FCO AHU kind of ways.
I see. Do you have any favorite or most memorable project that you worked on with regards to decarbonization? Something that you look back on and think, wow, I did that.
So in terms of these kind of projects, yes, there are, but I think on a whole, it's more of the process of how you end up doing it. So yes, I've worked on net zero decarbonization road mappings for clients, and it's mainly the more rewarding part. I think it's conveying your ideas to the clients, and sometimes it's just a lot of finance jargons because I think ultimately as a building owner, the end goal is to, from my understanding, is kind of be the forefront of being sustainable and
being financially sound, I imagine.
And also financially, in terms of the savings as well. But
Yeah.
ultimately, from my input is how you can save energy. And sometimes all of these are kind of interlinked. So you save energy on annually, you also save money as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the process of getting my ideas out there. And,
that you thoroughly enjoy.
yeah, so it's communicating with the stakeholders, bringing my ideas out there, and then at the end of it, it's just colorful charts and figures and how much you can save and you know, in terms of their marketing end of things, they will be like the forefront of sustainability. And for me, it's not really the end goal. It's meeting and kind of conveying my ideas and thoughts. And it's not just me doing that, it's actually a collective.
Yeah.
A group of people, of course the team members, we give out ideas and bounce ideas off of one another, you know, and that's what I find really enjoyable. It's really the process.
The process of tackling and solving the problem together. Ideating, and also involves imagination and dreaming of what you want the day to look like, does it?
Yep, you can also say that. But of course, I think at the end of it, you want it to be practical, but at the same time innovative, so that there is an each in terms of how they operate or how they discuss the each of their sustainability features.
I would imagine being a sustainability consultant in built environment, you get to touch, see and feel your work, and you get to touch, see and feel your input compared to, let's say, a management consultant where sometimes you don't really know where your input has gone. How does that make you feel being able to, for example, visit a building that you had advised and they had come to you for consultancy and seeing these changes implemented? How does it make you feel?
I think at the end of it, it feels very rewarding, especially like at the end of, because for green mark assessments there is the verification stage of things. So at the end of the project, you get to visit the site on operations and kind of mention what are the sustainability features of the project to stakeholders as well as the assessor, the BCA assessor. So I would say it's very rewarding. And one of the more prominent projects that I got to be a part of was actually I did the acoustic verification for a fit-out project for the TikTok office. So I got to first-hand be in Mr. Show's office and to be around to kind of do the acoustic testing for the office as well.
I see.
So acoustics is also kind of bundled together with sustainability in terms of the health and well-being of things.
And from your vantage point, how does health and well-being intersect with this huge umbrella term that we call sustainability?
So in terms of how this health and well-being touches on the topic of sustainability, is also, I would say like the word by itself, health and well-being, is kind of improving how people operate, because 80% of our time is spent indoors. So of course we want to kind of replicate how being healthy outdoors is to the indoors.
Yeah.
So in terms of the health and well-being, it's mainly looking into your 5 senses, and this is categorized under what we call the indoor environmental policy. So it's split between your lighting, which is linked to your sight. Your nose will be your indoor air quality, so making sure that the pollutants indoors are within a certain range. Your CO2 levels, your formaldehyde, making sure that you don't inhale all these contaminants. And when it comes to acoustics, it's mainly the soundproofing of the rooms, making sure that it's private and we
so when you say something really sensitive, the 10 people waiting outside your office door cannot hear you.
That's yeah. And then your light is basically your sight. So that's how it kind of bonds. And I think ultimately when the occupants or your employees are happy, have a happier working environment at the end of the day.
So what are the biggest challenges in the built environment with regards to sustainability and decarbonization right now? Biggest challenges that you guys feel like you're racing against time to solve, or the common themes that you guys feel like really need to be solved and worked on?
You know, sometimes sustainability in a term is very vague, and my job is really to quantify all these, and these are normally done through understanding how the portfolio is kind of.
I see, or like the kind of real estate buildings you're working with.
And the amount of energy is being consumed. So in terms of what I feel is lacking is, or rather it's I see improvement on this is the data of how each of the buildings, building FM site is taking in the numbers. So sometimes when I request for information, it's the data that I'm receiving, there are a lot of gaps. So some of the months they are there, some of the months it's not there.
So I imagine because of that, it makes it difficult for you to really understand what.
In terms of the bigger picture, it's harder to piece everything together.
I see.
But there are of course like the use of AI tools and machine learning to kind of bridge this gap.
I see.
But I think on a whole, I see from what I observe, it's improving and it's being more consistent. Because some building operators only take certain specific data, whereas other buildings will have their own, like what we call the building management system, which automates everything for them. And some of the data are, I would say, a bit more overwhelming.
So would you say there's an issue of perhaps some companies or building managers not being very transparent about the data because they want to make the numbers look better, or is this a sustainability version of cooking the books?
I wouldn't think it's that way, but rather it's more of because the lack of the use of technology, but it's still a work in progress. It's getting to a stage where majority of these older buildings are upgrading their building management system so that everything gets more automated, and in terms of data gathering and data archiving, it's more consistent. So
would you say in that case, right, that one of the biggest issues is getting all the existing buildings to, number one, have all their data in place so that you know how to help them decarbonize and meet that net zero goal. Number two, to help them get there. Would you say that is the main issue rather than new buildings and facilities?
I would say that's one strategy to look at things. But at the same time, you know, when you get that energy from the building, sometimes it's just like one lump sum of buildings.
Yeah.
Equivalent to how we doctors perceive human health or how healthy we are is through BMI.
Yeah.
So it's your kg per height. If we were to look at things in that same light, the building is also quite the same. So if we were to look at it in the building point of view, the energy, there is also an equivalent term for the buildings called the EY. So it's called the energy usage index. And this is it's like your density of how much your building is consuming. So in a way, there are benchmarks for certain typologies, similar to how a BMI is looked at. But in a way, that is a very high level point of how you see things. Eventually, what we want is like how this energy is being dispersed. How much energy is being used by your chillers, your pumps, your air conditioning, your receptacle loads, your lighting loads. Then from there, we kind of identify which one are the energy guzzlers, and that's where the AEI or the Asset Enhancement Initiative comes into place to reduce as much from what we've identified.
I imagine it is a huge problem because when lots of these buildings were being built, sustainability wasn't in mind at that point. It's very much about putting in new technology to buildings as and whenever they're built, right?
Fortunately, from what I observe, there are ways around that issue. You know, there are a lot of what we we call the sub-meters. Then from the sub-meters, identify how much that space is consuming. But of course, moving forward, the new requirement of the new green mark requirements will require a more specific end use of equipment. So I would say, in terms of the newer buildings, it's easier to retrieve all these data. So once you look through all the data, you can kind of pinpoint this energy is being consumed by this. Whereas for the older buildings, from my experience, it's all over the place. Because you have to read the drawings and kind of work backwards to where
to guesstimate what's going on.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
Outside of Singapore, right? Because the green mark is a very Singapore-specific, I guess, number or figure. What would you say, in terms of globally, what do you think some of the biggest challenges in the built environment space are? Like, what are the pressing problems, perhaps in ASEAN, perhaps in Asia, perhaps the world, that you think need to be tackled, or the industry is actively trying to solve?
In terms of how the industry is actively trying to solve, everyone has is on the same page with regards to this. Making sure that the rooms are not overcooled, because if you overcool rooms, it only lead to people wearing more clothes and kind of like overconsumption in terms of the energy in that aspect. Whereas I think for your question, the green mark is more of like a green assessment tool to assess the buildings, how green a building really is, and in a more holistic kind of overview. So it's not only just the energy, there are also other aspects to it, and that includes the health and well-being portion. So there are different measures for the new Green Mark 2021, and so mainly all in the local context, these assessments are used to identify key players who are pushing for sustainability. But I think there are also other green assessment tools that we can refer to, because I would say Green Mark is more focused towards the tropical climate. So there are other green assessments in different countries. For example, the US uses the LEED standards, LEED.
What is the LEED?
So LEED standards are also looking at concepts and features it's also a green assessment tool to certify a building.
I see.
So but the difference between LEED and Green Mark is more towards tropical, whereas they have a holistic, the way that they do the energy part, they have different climate standards. So different climates will be referring to the different categories.
I would imagine, because the variations in climate in America is the same.
Yeah.
You have Alaska, then you have Florida. You can't measure them the same way at all. So, yeah.
You're not wrong. Yes.
Yeah. So, what exciting trends and opportunities do you think are emerging in the built environment currently, or in time to come?
I think in time to come, the topic, I think in this generation, it's more of the use of AI tools, machine learning, and I would say these tools kind of marry and complement the kind of works that we do as well. Not only just relying on these tools, rather it's also to kind of help us, help practitioners to speed up the work process, because sometimes it's very time-consuming
to
analyze data. So these tools are kind of in place to help us speed things.
And also,
yes.
I imagine to identify new potential solutions and pain points, because outside their context as a sustainability industry, I have read about this being used in the biomedical industry, where they discover new potential drugs for cures and things like that through LLM machines, through machine learning and Gen AI and things like that, because there's just so many data points that people alone simply cannot comb through because it's too laborious.
Yep, you're not wrong about that. yeah. So in like to kind of improve the how buildings are being operated, as well as because it's not a very straightforward solution in a sense that the building is not the way we operate buildings are different, and the users of the buildings, each one of us are different, and we feel
human aspect to it as
the
well.
human aspect to it complicates things even more.
Yeah.
So once I actually ran a few data using some machine learning to kind of understand how human occupants in different region feel. So at the end of it, I got a very skewed, or there wasn't one point that I saw in the data that made sense, because each person in the interview were in terms of the subjective interview, how people felt was very all over the place. Some were feeling cold, some were feeling hot, and
they have different habits as well, different preferences.
Yeah. So, but in terms of the objective, like how the room is being kept, like the relative humidity as well as how the temperature of the room is quite consistent. It's only when we analyze how people feel, it was very skewed. So it's very hard to relate all these or marry the results of this together. So that's why there are a lot of studies being conducted now to make sure that energy is as much as possible pushed on, and
rather than making sure that people are generally happy with how it's being done.
Yeah, as well as kind of making sure that those who are in the room are relatively fine with how they operate things on a daily. It won't affect their mental, how they work, and as well as how. Yeah.
Heating and cooling consumes a massive amount of energy.
Yep.
Like a massive amount. In a tropical climate, it's the cooling that's an issue. In colder climates, it's the heating that's an issue. And in temperature-controlled buildings, no one is ever happy. There's no happy consensus on when the heater or the cooler should be turned on or off and how much as well. I imagine in residential settings and even professional settings as well.
So each one of us have different perception of how we are comfortable, how we are, and also like how we are dressed, our metabolic rates, and all the kind of stuff. All comes into play of how we are comfortable, and it's why it's very hard to pinpoint what is.
Like what is the average person?
Yeah, and it's also not a good way of putting things like a more prescriptive method to do things.
Yeah.
But there are different studies that are being done now, like individual cooling. But the setbacks is it's very rigid in terms of how we would do things. So, for example, individual cooling will be at your own desk, and then you will have your own fan in front of you, and then from there you do the set points and adjusting. So, in the interior design kind of point of view, it's very set in stone. So that is one of the drawbacks of doing individualized cooling. So yeah, there are a lot of studies out there now to look into those kind of stuff and how much savings the building owner will be able to reap if they were to implement all those.
So given that, from what you're telling me and in general, I think there's a consensus that temperature has a very high impact on human health and well-being, both in the built environment and outside the built environment. In the context of global warming and the fluctuations in temperature caused by energy use, what are your thoughts on this?
This is a very interesting topic. So, for example, when I conduct or when I do energy modeling, so part of the energy modeling inputs that I need are weather data. So on a normal basis, I will just input the weather data that is available on my as a part of the existing templates that I have. But in some of the projects where they will assume a temperature rise, for example in 2050, there will be a temperature rise. That's where the economics kind of things are put into play. So the weather data is kind of, I would say, predicted of how it will be operating in 2050. And from there, I will use that weather data to be put into my energy model. And from what I observed, from the baseline of the energy model, from the template that I use, on the same climate for that particular project versus the 2050 data, there is an increase of energy. And in terms of what are the set points that need to be placed versus the predicted 2050 versus the set points that are being placed at the template, there is a certain amount of delta T, or the temperature difference of how things are being operated.
I see.
So definitely there will be a big impact, and as much as possible from what we, because I think that study was mainly to foresee or observe how much energy will be consumed for that asset itself. It's a very eye-opening kind of project.
I see.
And I think ultimately we want to keep things consistent moving forward.
In terms of the experience of people in the indoor and outdoor environment.
Indoor and outdoor environment.
Yeah. And what are some solutions that have been floated or in discussion about how to potentially, in a way, future-proof the built environment with regards to global warming and climate change?
I think in terms of this, it's mainly the policies put in place. Different regions kind of, or rather the recent COP29, where all leaders around the world kind of come together and discuss policies that how they can work and put things together.
I see.
So that is definitely a step forward. Collaboration between the different countries.
Global collaboration. Because we live on one Earth. Whether we like it or not, we're all stuck on this one Earth.
Yeah.
For now, at least, until somebody decides to establish a colony on Mars. And we as a global collective share this Earth. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on COP29 and existing levels of cooperation in the context of sustainability consulting? Do you think, do you feel like are ideas siloed, or is there like a very huge exchange of ideas between, I don't know, different firms and different regions?
I think from what I observed, what the takeaways from this COP29 was making sure different countries were on the same page, making that declaration of their commitments in terms of how they want to, for the sustainability point of view of their countries.
Yeah.
At the same time, there were also collaborations between countries to decarbonise, to kind of expedite or speed things up.
I see.
So I think at the end of it, from what I observed, was a very fruitful COP29.
I see. And what sort of solutions have you seen in your line of work that people, countries, or companies are floating or suggesting to speed up this process?
I think the one that is very floating around now is the collaboration between Singapore and the ASEAN countries to come up with renewable energy and having the infrastructure.
The ASEAN Power Grid.
To have the infrastructure linked back to Singapore. That is definitely a very collaborative approach to things, and it's for a positive outcome, which I feel will speed this decarbonization topic.
In the context of Singapore, yes. I have read that there have been some difficulties in the negotiations with regards to the ASEAN Power Grid.
Yes.
Because not everyone benefits the same or the same way.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yes. But in terms of how the government side of things are being run and how this negotiation, I'm not really sure of the bigger picture. But I hope that it will come to an agreement on a fair way to do this.
100%, because I mean, if anything were to happen in terms of climate, sea levels rising, it's not just Singapore to be affected. They are affected as well. ASEAN is affected. regions beyond ASEAN are also affected. So, what kind of skills and knowledge do you think young people should focus on if they're looking to enter this space or have a job? What do you think they need?
I think in terms of the soft skills, definitely it's the inquisitive mind to kind of know things. You want to know more things. Because at the end of the day, I would say it's not the way things work, or rather or my background is mainly is because I'm from a mechanical engineering background. So, like for example, all this energy and how the air cons work, physics in terms of what you should kind of know, physics comes into play. You know, your thermodynamic laws. Because it's ultimately your what you call the ECMP or HVAC systems, your heating, ventilation, and your air conditioning. You know, there's a lot of science behind that, and how much savings you can reap from all these systems to quantify it, to calculate it out. But I think at the end of the day, it's being inquisitive. You should. It's not really. Know your academics, your thermodynamics. Rather, it's being abreast with all the new technologies that's coming up.
Being willing to learn.
And being willing to learn. Yes.
And you talked a lot about stakeholder management earlier. What is stakeholder management?
So in terms of stakeholder management, you have to also know your audience. So, for example, like for my line of work, there's a lot of collaboration. So I get to talk with consultants, your facilities manager, and then also at the same time kind of share my ideas with the building owners or the stakeholders who will eventually see or not whether they want to adopt the newer technologies to their buildings.
So you have to communicate your ideas, communicate your know-how.
Yes. Yeah, so like for example with the facilities manager, I would say they are more towards the technical side of things. So when I request for information with them, I know that they have the technical know-hows of what I want. So towards there, I'll make sure that the things I want are succinct and straight to the point, because at the end of the day, they are still kind of doing.
They have their own bunch of stuff to do as well.
And when it comes to like the stakeholders, that you try to be more simplified in terms of the things and summarize things earlier in your presentation, because they are also spending. They are also very busy.
So for context, right? Consultants like him are billed by the hour. So each hour that he's talking, these people are paying him. So everyone wants to spend less, so they want him to say everything first, up front, so that they don't have him rambling for 2 hours and having to pay double what he costs in 15 minutes.
That's how we put it as well.
I think it's very fair.
It's
very fair.
It's business.
And I imagine so communication skills are very important. Very, very important. Wait, actually, how do you think your boss or co-workers would describe you in 3 words?
Boss or co-workers? I'm not sure how they would think of me or describe me in 3 words, but I would want them to describe me as someone cooperative, hardworking, and a joy to be around. But that's a lot of words.
So if you want to have John's job, right, you have to be hardworking, cooperative, and a joy to be around. So how do you know what you need to be apart from the husband? So what advice would you give to someone with no technical background but wants to enter this space because perhaps they had a more alternative educational background, or maybe they studied something else and they realized that the built environment space is something that they want to enter into?
So as what I've shared, it's not, the rules, it can be technical, but at the same time can be very simple. So maybe I can give an example of like what are the kind of things that what I consulted or gave advice on to put things into perspective. So there was once I was doing an in-office assessment, and and I'm sure everyone is familiar with the 3 R's, the reduce, reuse, and recycle. Yeah, so to attain one point for this section is to have a centralized sorting of waste list. And from what I observed in that office is that each of the cubicles had their own bins. So my advice for this kind was just to kind of remove that individual bins and then come up with waste facilities that will be spread out throughout the office to make sure that it's accessible to all the employees. It wasn't well received. It wasn't really a protest, but it was not very well received. So I had to come up with like a convincing way to put things into perspective.
As to why we should get up, walk, just to throw their trash rather than just pop it.
Yeah. So I had to come up with like a slide just so they can buy into the idea, and eventually they did buy into the idea of having a centralized waste, trash area, and eventually they got the award that they were vying for.
I see.
So it's not necessarily technical or not, and sometimes it's convincing. So
because sometimes maybe people are the problem.
I'm not moving towards that, but maybe maybe people are the problem. But yeah, other than that, it's convincing. Have the inquisitive mind, and if you're really passionate about all these sustainability topics, I would highly suggest to get your hands dirty and have that conversations with people around.
To seek out people in positions that you want to be in, and have a coffee with them, and just a chat to find out more about the industry.
That's I'll make it happen.
Where do you see the industry heading in the next decade or so?
As we all may know that this sustainability thing, it has been in the built environment for a very long time, but it's only come into surface of the picture when people wanted, or rather the higher ups of the management wanted a more solid, like quantifiable term to this. And from my line of work, it's always been evolving. The kind of projects that I'm doing are always evolving. And what I see is the use of technology being more adamant and more observed to not only simplify how we use the building, rather it's also to simplify how buildings are being operated and maintained as well.
I see.
So taking into perspective all those maintenance, the health, and health and safety issues.
So all the small little parts that make up the big picture still, basically, in a way. And how do you think younger people in the industry can get involved with this? What kind of capacity would they be involved?
It's more towards, in my opinion, it's being abreast with the new technologies. Don't be afraid to kind of learn new things, new technologies, and it may sound complicated, but it's derived from the basics. So as long as you kind of have the basics, like how do you turn on and off a light, versus like using automated occupancy sensors to automate things. The way we operate buildings and the way we use buildings now, like what you mentioned, many people are the issue. That's why we have a lot of energy usage. Like for example, just the turning on and off the lights. There are different ways of turning on and off the lights. There are switches. There are sensors. So don't be afraid to learn technologies. How the different technologies kind of come together to change the way we operate buildings and
change our habits as well.
Change our habits.
At this point. If you could restart your career, right? What would you have done differently to prepare for today's sustainability challenges? Like, imagine erase everything and you're back to your polytechnic self.
Okay, for this, because like what I shared with you, this has been a happy accident.
Yeah.
So I would say, coming into this, if you asked me 10 years ago whether I wanted to be a sustainability engineer, it wasn't part of the picture.
Yeah.
But to restart everything, I would say I would have, like what you mentioned, engaged more with professionals.
Mm-hmm.
But to kind of put myself out there is to reach out first, and hopefully the first person you reach out will not let you down so easily. But I think the first step is putting yourself out there, and it's still for myself personally, it's a new thing for me as well to kind of be myself, putting myself out there.
Would you encourage young people to get in touch with you if they wanted to find out more?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
You don't
idea.
mind having them talk to you, find out more.
Yeah, we can have a
Conversations.
coffee and have that conversation,
Yeah.
and hopefully make that the talk with.
Yeah, and feel free to, I guess, get in touch with John over LinkedIn. And thank you very much for the conversation today, John. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think it was very fruitful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.